number one, done and dusted, the cardboard box, that's what we need. Pillar number two is very much about providing multiple and separated key environmental resources. And while we all knew on the panel what we meant by this, it was actually really difficult to articulate, so I'll try and do it. But basically, our key environmental resources are, in no particular order, somewhere to scratch, somewhere to rest and sleep, somewhere to drink, somewhere to toilet, somewhere to eat, and somewhere to play or display predatory behaviour. What we say when they should be available in multiple locations is that we do not have somewhere to sleep, somewhere to eat, somewhere to drink, somewhere to scratch, and somewhere to toilet, all in a very, very small area. They should be in very, very different locations. And sadly, I think time and time again, when I go into owners' homes, they create a really lovely, dedicated area in their home just for the cat. And they want to show you, look, this is just the cat's room. He has it all to himself. And you think, oh, crumbs. They really need to be distributed across the whole area. So multiple locations, but also multiple resources. We need more than one of each thing. That again gives, remember we talked about the cat being a control freak, that gives that sense of control because you have choice. And choice is really, really important in life for maintaining your well-being. So each single resource, be it the water station or the feeding station, should be in its own place, away from the others, and it should have another version of itself somewhere else in the home. This really enlarges the area that's available to the cat. So this is a very, 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 very good cat owner, actually. He does a lot of fostering as well. And he, as you can see, he's done a lot of building his own enrichment devices and feeding devices, and he really has dedicated his home to trying to help cats. But there are some things that aren't quite right. If we look at this picture, he has a feeding station here. He has the toy here. 3 more feeding stations here, all side by side, and another feeding station here. So within the space of a few square meters, yes, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feeding stations and opportunity for play, but they're all around a central area, which is bringing these 3 cats together. And you can see this one is a little resistant and holding back. And we don't want to create that situation. I say to him, it's fantastic you've got so many opportunities for them to feed, but let's spread those out in the house. I know for humans, we eat in the kitchen or we eat in the dining room. But for our cats, let's provide opportunity for that to be separated right across the home. And one way we can do this, and we can utilise this as in veterinary practice for all your vets and vet nurses, is that we can ask our owners, or we can work with our owners, to produce a resource map. And this would be a really easily produced handout that we can utilise. So this is what I see really, really often. And this is usually like the utility room, or one end of the kitchen. But actually what we can say to owners is you want something that looks much more like this. And they can be innovative in thinking, where would be a good place for this? Where might be a good place for this? Involve children if they're in the home as well, because they'll always know of the good cubby holes and places where things can go. But this might be something we utilise in veterinary practice to find out what resources a cat has, how many of them they have, and how they are distributed around the home. The other things we need to consider when we're thinking about the multiple resources and separating them is, again, if the cats have outdoor access, have opportunity for those resources outside as well. For water, we can have rainwater collection dishes. They often prefer that water. We can have drinking fountains outside. Again, they often prefer running water. Suitable outdoor toileting areas. One of the biggest problems, and certainly one of the biggest complaints I think I get from non-cat lovers is cats toileting in people's gardens. They don't like cats because they toilet in their beloved gardens, which they adore. Now, I am a very keen gardener and a cat lover, and it is possible to be both. But what you need to do is provide a garden that is appropriate for your cat. So a lot of the garden lovers end up with all the cats peeing and pooing in their garden because they have beautifully raked soil. They have the perfect latrine for a cat in their garden. And us as cat owners have the responsibility to make our gardens the perfect latrine for our cats. So a private, secluded, rakeable substrate. This is in the garden of our cat welfare centre again, and you can see we've created this real sand area covered by lots and lots of buddleias and brambles, so that the cats have a private area, and they love using this. So sandpit areas, soil areas, flower beds, we should be creating these in our own gardens as responsible cat owners. Suitable outdoor scratching areas, so tree trunks. In our garden now we've covered all these posts with sisal rope, so they have high scratching posts. And food, I wouldn't recommend putting a feeding station outside for lots of reasons. One being you may attract other cats into the area. Two, you may be attracting other animals. But I do feed my cats outside. I do a lot of scatter feeding of their kibble on the lawn, but I supervise that and I make sure that no food is left. So I do feeding outside, but I don't leave food outside for them. We also need to consider in those households that have more than one cat, how many social groups are within that home. That's really, really important because a social group will need its own set of resources and they should never be expected to share those with another social group. And I think the classic example is you may have a house of 4 individuals and it's a flat share or a house share and there's 2 couples. One couple will quite happily share a bed and another couple will quite happily share another bed, but you can't swap and change those. They have their own sets of resources within the same home. How do we know if our cats are in the same social group? That's a talk within itself, but very, very briefly, we should be looking for certain behaviours such as resting together or in close proximity, playing together, grooming each other, nose-to-nose greeting, which then, after they greet, they leave amicably from one another. There's no swiping. Facial rubbing, body rubbing, and in real positive relationships with preferred affiliates, you might even see this tail wrapping, which is really, really lovely to see. And here, this is a head presentation. This cat is presenting his head for the other cat to groom. So, how do we provide multiple and separated resources in a veterinary cage? I know that is a really, really difficult situation, and Vicky and I were actually chatting about this at breakfast and how some people are being really innovative now on how they can do that. First and foremost, utilise the largest cages that you have. If you have the opportunity to use a double cage, use a double cage. If you have the opportunity to use a dog cage, which is much bigger, utilise that. But it really is a case of what resources do I have and how can I do this? And certainly, if people have ideas, I would be really, really keen to hear them and for them to be shared. We certainly see now perches that you can buy that clip onto the front of veterinary cages. We were talking earlier about tying up fabrics so that you can make hammocks within them or teepees for safe places. So lots of ideas starting to come through.